Okay, let's just start with a simple question. You just clicked on this explainer, but was that really your choice? A genuine act of free will? Or was it just, I don't know, the inevitable outcome of a long, long chain of events stretching back way before you were even born?
You know, that question, who's really in control? It's one of the oldest, deepest debates in all of human history. So today, let's dive in. We're going to unpack the arguments, look at the science, and figure out what it all means for you and me.
All right, so to really get our heads around the biggest challenge to free will, I want you to picture something. Imagine the entire universe as this just unbelievably massive, complex set of dominoes, all perfectly lined up, just waiting to fall.
This whole idea has a name. It's called determinism. And here's the deal. It basically says that every single event, and I mean everything, from a star exploding millions of light years away to you deciding what to have for breakfast this morning, is the direct, necessary result of whatever happened right before it. So think about it. The Big Bang knocked over that first domino, and every single thing since then, including every thought that's ever popped into your head, is just another domino falling in this perfect, predictable chain.
So here's where it gets, well, a little weird. If determinism is actually true, then that powerful feeling you have of making a choice, that sensation of weighing your options and then deciding, that might just be a trick, an illusion your mind plays on you to give you a sense of control in a universe that's already playing out on a preset track.
Yeah, as you can imagine, this tension has fueled a huge philosophical debate for centuries. You've got brilliant minds lining up on all sides of this thing.
So on one side of the ring, you've got determinism, which we just talked about. And on the other, you have metaphysical libertarianism. And no, this has nothing to do with politics. It's the philosophical idea that we humans, well, we're special. That we can actually start brand new causal chains all by ourselves. We're like uncaused causes. This is the view that really backs up that gut feeling we all have, right? That when you made a choice, you genuinely, truly could have chosen differently.
But, it's not just a two-sided fight. There's a third way, a kind of middle ground, and it's called compatibilism. This idea tries to be the peacemaker. It argues that, hey, maybe freedom and determinism can actually coexist. A compatibilist would say you're free as long as you can act on your own desires, without someone forcing you. And the fact that your desires themselves might have been determined by your genes and your upbringing, well, that doesn't really matter. You're still acting on what you want.
Okay, so this whole debate wasn't just stuck in philosophy books. Eventually, it moved from the ancient world right into the modern neuroscience lab. And that's where things got really, really strange.
Back in the 1980s, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet, he conducted these experiments that just completely shook the foundations of this whole debate. He wanted to see what was actually happening inside the brain at the exact moment of a supposedly free decision.
And here's what he found. It's pretty wild. He had people just sit there and flick their wrist whenever they felt the urge. Simple, right? But he also asked them to notice the exact moment they consciously decided to do it. And what he discovered was that a specific type of brain activity, he called it the readiness potential, started building up a whole half second before the person was even aware they had made a decision. Let that sink in.
So this brings up a really unsettling question, doesn't it? If your brain is already getting ready to act before your conscious mind is even aware of the decision, then who's actually calling the shots? Is your conscious self just kind of rubber stamping a decision that your unconscious brain already made for you?
But hold on, it's not an open and shut case. A lot of people, including Libet himself, argued that this doesn't kill free will, it just redefines it. Maybe our real freedom isn't about starting an action, but about the conscious power to veto it, in that tiny little window between becoming aware of the urge and actually acting on it. So it's not free will, it's free won't. Our freedom is really our ability to say no to our own impulses.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds super abstract, right? Like, who cares? But the truth is, the answer to this question has huge, real-world consequences for pretty much everything we care about.
I mean, just think about it for a second. If we don't really have free will,
Then how can we possibly hold anyone morally responsible for what they do? Seriously, if a person couldn't have chosen to do anything different, how can we blame them for doing something wrong, or even praise them for doing something right?
and if you take away moral responsibility, what happens to our whole idea of justice? Our entire legal system, the idea of punishment and reward, it's all built on the assumption that people are the authors of their own actions.
And this, right here, is why the belief in free will is so incredibly important, whether it's actually true or not.
There are studies that show when you tell people they don't have free will, they're more likely to cheat. They're less likely to help others. This belief, it's like the scaffolding that holds up our civilization. It's the psychological software that runs our systems of ethics, accountability, and even our own motivation to try.
But okay, there's one more perspective we have to look at. And this one, it flips the whole problem on its head. It puts the burden of freedom right back on our shoulders.
And that's the existentialist view. For an existentialist, arguing about whether free will is some provable scientific fact is completely missing the point. They say, look, freedom isn't some property you have, like having brown hair. Freedom is the fundamental condition of being human. It's not a gift, it's a demand that you have to live up to.
The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre put it perfectly with this famous phrase, existence precedes essence. What he meant was, you're not born with some predefined purpose or nature, like a coffee cup is made to hold coffee. No, you just exist first, and then, through every single choice you make, you define who you are. You create your own essence.
This is what he meant when he said we are condemned to be free. Think about that. We are thrown into this universe without a script, without a manual, and we are totally, inescapably responsible for every choice we make. Why? Because those choices don't just shape our lives. They create the very meaning of our lives in the first place.
So, okay, how can we actually use this idea? Well, there's a really powerful mental tool called zero-based thinking. It's a way to kind of hit the reset button on all that causal history in your own life. Here's how it works. You take a big commitment you have, say your job or a relationship. Then you mentally wipe the slate clean. Forget how you got there. And you ask yourself this one simple question. Knowing everything I know now, if I weren't already in this situation, would I choose this again today? It's a powerful way to reclaim your power from just, coasting on habit.
And that brings us right back to the beginning, doesn't it? But with a totally new way of looking at it. Maybe the most important question isn't whether you really chose to watch this. Maybe the real question is this. Regardless of whether your choices are determined or totally free, what are you going to choose to do next? Because in the end, that's the only choice that really matters.